Hey, what's up guys and gals, my name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be looking at I Love Lucy. Thanks to all of you for the amazing support. Don't forget to visit my Patreon. It's a great way to have exclusive content not seen on YouTube. As well as check out my videos because I have many different TV shows and sitcoms that I cover. I think you'll love them, so go ahead and take a look. In this episode, we're going to focus on something that's really interesting, and it's called the fourth wall. Now, you may have heard of it, but for those who do not know, the fourth wall has to do with being able, as an audience, as an observer of a TV show, for example, to be able to look into the lives of these characters. And so if a character, for example, is in an apartment complex, it's pretty much hard to look inside. So the magic of TV, you're able to look inside and to see basically the three walls of an apartment and not see the fourth, which is where you are looking right through. And that is something that was pretty much created for our benefit. However, in the show I Love Lucy, you will see how this effect of the fourth wall essentially creates a fairly large blooper. And I want to know how many of you caught this because it's very interesting. Now, I want to make clear, in regards to the show I Love Lucy, there are two apartments that the Ricardos lived in during the course of the show. The first one, I used to call it the brick wall or the windowless apartment because that's just what it was. There was a brick wall on the left-hand side, and right in front of us, there was no window. Whereas to the move to the larger apartment, where there is no full brick wall, but you do have a windowed apartment. So you could say the non-window versus the windowed. Now, what I'll be focusing on is the Ricardo's kitchen in that first windowless apartment. Now, the main question is, was there a counter in the kitchen or was there no counter? And that is the question of the day. Well, we're going to look at that because there may be a little bit of a conflicting information regarding this. Now, I can look at many different episodes, but I'm just going to choose to look at a few. Let's look at the episode The Kleptomaniac. Now, this is of course the one where Ricky and Fred and even Ethel at some point believe that Lucy's a kleptomaniac and stealing things. It's a pretty hilarious premise, but if you really look at this point in the episode, we see Lucy and Ethel in the kitchen. You can see that there is very clearly a counter that is used. They sit at it and they have their meal. So clearly there is a counter there. Now let's move on to the episode Pioneer Women. Now this is the one with the major issue. We look at the beginning of the episode, we see Ricky sitting at the counter. It's the same counter, it really hasn't changed much. We also see Lucy preparing his breakfast, of course, with these ancient type 1900 technology, which is funny in and of itself, but you can clearly see a counter. Now moving on to a latter part of the episode where Lucy is of course making that giant ball of dough to make it into the bread. Of course there has to be a counter there, but remember, many people love this episode. It's very iconic. Why? Because we see the gigantic loaf of bread coming out of the oven. Well, think about it. If you really look at the oven during the course of these counter scenes, you cannot see the bottom of the oven. You wouldn't be able to see the giant loaf of bread coming out. So what did they have to do? They had to remove that counter. Now the reason is, of course, so that we can see that loaf of bread, but we don't think about it. It's almost like we can see completely through it, just like we can see through that fourth wall. So next time you look at this episode, realize that there is no appearance of a counter, but in the sense of the story, the counter's there. It's just not able to be seen. So when I saw this, when I noticed this, I was kind of blown away because honestly, I hadn't seen it before. I've seen this episode many times, but I've never noticed that it serves the purpose of the story. And I do want to highlight something that's very cool and interesting, and that is that you can actually see that the back of the quote-unquote oven is cut, and between that and the wall you see a space where the giant loaf of bread is being pushed in. Because think about that. Again, that couldn't have fitted the entire loaf of bread inside the oven. There's a suspension of belief there that we just believe. Why? Well, because we enjoy the show, and that's something that should not only be put on I Love Lucy, but also other shows like Gilligan's Island, and some shows tend to have the audience have more suspension of belief versus others. So I don't know, many people don't seem to have a problem with this, but I thought that a lot of you would find this blooper really interesting and really fun to look at. Now, what do you think? Do you agree that there should have been a counter during this scene, or how should they have done this differently? Or is this the correct way to proceed? There are a lot of moments in film and TV that do this, but I thought bringing it to your attention might be something that you might enjoy. We'll see you next time, guys and gals. Don't forget to stay positive, always better yourself, and most importantly, be hopeful.